How you doing, guys? It's Alessandro here from Spicy Moustache with some new tips in order to help you creating your own green area, indoor or outdoor, following the principle of do as nature does. We are at the end of August and the garden is exploding with lush plants, providing fresh food every single day. However, it's not always a good season and it could quickly turn into a bad one, discouraging new gardeners from growing their green thumb. For people like myself, growing in a restricted area like my urban garden, losing a single plant could mean a lot due to the limited space and the limited amount of plants. So dig up the like button, and today I'll share with you 10 of my best tips to grow and harvest tomatoes in raised beds or pots. The first time I planted something in my garden, it was a cherry tomato plant. However, I didn't have any sort of experience, so I literally bought some cherry tomatoes from the market, extracted the seeds and planted in my garden. I ended up with a few tomatoes and I was really happy with it, but I did some major mistakes that I could have avoided, maximizing my production. I think tomatoes are an ideal plant for beginners, highly productive, and easy to nurture from seed to harvest. The trick to grow great tasting tomatoes is to choose the right varieties, start off right, and control any issue or disease before they happen. When you select the variety to grow in your garden, you need to decide between plants with different grow habits called determinate or indeterminate tomatoes. Determinate varieties, including bush varieties, grow to a certain height and then they stop growing. The majority of their fruit mature between 1 month or 2 and they appear at the end of the branches. These are popular with gardeners wanting their tomatoes being ready pretty much all at once. It could be due to a limited growing time or having plans to plant something else in succession after their crop before the end of the season. The great thing about these varieties is that little or no pruning is required. Indeterminate varieties, on the other hand, continue to grow and produce fruit all along the stems for the whole growing season. Indeterminate variety needs extra tall support of at least 5 feet. Because indeterminate varieties throw out so many shots, gardeners often prune them to optimize the production of fruit, or they train them on very tall trellis. There are many reasons why I personally prefer to grow in raised beds rather than growing in open ground, and I highly recommend to try it. Growing in raised beds brings additional advantages for vegetable growers. Plants can be grown in blocks, encouraging plants to grow more uniformly as the competition between them is minimal. Also, it's much easier to control and suppress weeds spreading in your garden. It's pretty practical to control the amount of water given to your plant and check if they have no stress, pests or disease. If growing in pods, you can move them around according to the sun rotation, and also when the winter comes, you can move them indoor. When it comes to trim and prune, you can easily access all the parts of your plant, and also when you plan what to plant in your garden, you can pair or separate plants growing together. The first tip that I would like to share to grow your tomatoes is to prepare an adequate soil mix. This sounds pretty basic, but it's actually one of the most important steps. Tomatoes are heavy feeders, so they need a lot of organic matter in the soil ready to be absorbed by the plant whenever they need it. Also, drainage is essential to avoid build-up of moisture, which could bring to pests and disease. I make my own mix by mixing 40% good potting soil, 40% homemade compost, 10% perlite, and 10% homemade worm casting. You can also find the link for each product in the description of the video, along with some link of pre-mix that are really good to use in your garden. Tomatoes needs a lot of space to branch out and spread their roots to access nutrients and moisture. Whenever I plant my seeds, I tend to plant 1 seed per cell. However, you could also plant a few in the same spot and either prick them out whenever they're still young and separate the plants and plant individually, or cut off the weaker seed and let the strong one grow. I highly discourage you to plant more than one tomato plant too close to each other or in a single pot, because the roots of both plants will suffocate each other, creating stunted growth or potentially killing them both. Another essential tip that saved my plants more than once is mulching. By mulching your plants, you will have multiple benefits. Mulching helps to retain moisture, which basically means that you will have to water your plant less, and also they will hardly dry out completely. This means that during the day, the soil gets warmed up by the sunlight, and by mulching it, it helps to lower the dispersion of this temperature overnight. Also, mulching helps to protect the soil web, which could be easily damaged by the climate changes. Tip number 4, it's all about feeding your tomatoes. Tomatoes are heavy feeders, which means they require a lot of nutrients in order to thrive and produce fruit. Other than making a good soil mix, you could feed them with compost tea. This means grab a cheesecloth, fill it up with compost or warm casting, and leave it in water, unchlorinated or rainwater, with an air pump for 12 to 24 hours, and then you can dilute it and water your plant. The beneficial bacteria will thrive and multiply in this water solution, and when applied to your garden, will improve the soil web. I also make Jadam liquid fertilizer, as I explained in one of my previous videos, which means that basically you grab a tomato plant, chop it down into pieces, and add it to a bucket with water, unchlorinated or rainwater, and a few scoops of leaf mold from the local park or woods. If you think about it, a tomato plant has already all the micro and macronutrients to grow another tomato plant start to finish. All you need is microorganisms that you find in the leaf mold to break down the plant material and make it easily absorbable for the new plants in your garden. You could also use comfrey leaves or alfalfa leaves to feed your plants with some prime natural nutrients. Another great tip that I learned to grow massive tomatoes and tomato plants is to plant them deep into your soil. The reason why you should do this is because along all their stems, they've got some white hairs that are called trichomes. An interesting fact about trichomes is that we got two kinds, called glandular and non-glandular trichomes. Glandular trichomes are hair-like in shape, and they come to a point with a round gland on the top. When there is an insect or similar walking on the plant, this gland on top of the trichomes starts to rupture. This process releases a sticky substance that traps the insects or release a smell. Non-glandular trichomes protect the plants from the climate changes like rain and wind, protecting the delicate dermal cells on the plant. Both trichomes, when planted deep into your soil, will turn into roots. Simply remove all the lower leaves on your seedlings and plant the plant as deep as you can, leaving just the top part exposed. This will help the plant to create a strong root system to have better access to nutrients and moisture. Pruning your tomatoes, it's a great technique to help your plant focusing on the fruit and also improve the air circulation. Basically, it's really easy for the plant to get disease, especially from the wind or soil, and also if you have a lot of leaves that retain moisture in between them. The more the plant grows, the more you should be on top of removing the bottom leaves, which could be in touch with your soil or also with the water splashes whenever you water your plant. This is also another reason to mulch and reduce the bouncing effect of water touching your plant leaves. Whenever you have all your leaves chopped down and pruned from the plant, just remember to not chuck it away, but use it for your compost or to make liquid fertilizer for the plant to plant next year. In order to take care of your plant and have full control over the way it grows and it develops, I recommend to pinch and remove suckers. Suckers are the green shots that grows from the main stem in between the leaves and the stem. However, they could also grow at the end of your leaves. If you don't check your plant regularly, you will start noticing an overgrown amount of foliage and stems, and it will make it hard to check for pests and disease, and also to check for fruit at the back. However, some people, they just don't remove any sucker and they let the plant grow wild, which still works. Another reason why I do it is because once you cut your suckers, you can add it to a cup with water and they will root and make another plant with the same genetic. This is great for two reasons. First of all, you will have new plants, And second, you will have a backup in case anything happens to your main plant. Watering your plants regularly, it's really important for tomatoes. Thanks to watering and nutrients, the fruit will develop in size and turn into some juicy tomatoes. If you don't water regularly, the tomatoes could potentially split. The reason for the split is that the surface tension of the tomato skin won't be able to stretch due to the sudden changes in the watering schedule. Also, you might potentially stress the plant, causing shock or other kind of issues. There are a few plants that you should always plant with your tomato plant, and they will not only be beneficial for your tomato plant, but they will also provide extra food in a small area. Basil, for example, it's an excellent companion plant for your tomato, and it will repel flies and hornworms, and it is also believed to improve the flavor and the yield of your tomato plant. Marigold, it's another plant that it's great to plant with your tomato plant. Plant marigolds 3 to 4 weeks before planting your tomato plant, and if you ever remove the plant of marigolds, remember to cut it at the base and leave the roots in the ground. The roots will create a symbiotic relationship with the roots of your tomato plant, and they will repel harmful nematodes. Also, marigold emit a strong scent that will repel green and black fly. Nasturtium offer protection from green and black flies, and also the whole plant is edible, including seeds and roots. A few other plants that you could potentially plant with your tomato plants are cosmos and borage, 2 edible flowers, and beans that will help to fix nitrogen into the soil and help your plant to grow during the vegetative growth, and garlic and onions that will help to repel some kind of pests around your plant. My last tip to grow tomatoes is to provide enough support, especially when the plant is producing fruit. I made a video all about creating a trellis out of timber and cotton twine that you can find in the corner of the screen. Also, you could use bamboo sticks to support the growth of small bush tomatoes that won't grow too tall. Make sure to start supporting your tomato plants since they are seedlings, so you won't risk to damage their structure. Tomatoes are one of my favorite things to grow, and harvesting the fruit makes me look forward for the new growing season every single year. Remember to make gardening a fun and learning experience, and don't get too stressed out if something happens to your crop, because you're gonna learn something new and you can apply it for the next year crops and make it better. I hope you liked today's video, and if so, please subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification settings so you can be notified every time I post a new video. And I'll see you next week for a new episode. Thank you so much for watching. See ya.